Hi, everyone. Today we have Jaime Stephenson. She swam at Florida Atlantic University, and now she's the manager of operations administration at ASM for the Barclay Center. Hi, Jaime. I'm really excited to have you on here today.
Hi, how are you, Jane?
I'm good. How are you?
Great.
So I just wanted to start off by asking you to talk a little bit about your collegiate athletic experience and how that sort of influenced your career path.
Yes, actually I started swimming when I was 6 years old, and obviously I swam all the way through till college. And when I was a junior in college, I wound up having to have back surgery. And I couldn't swim any longer, but I wanted to remain in sports. And so I kind of interned in the sports marketing department for the athletic department. I realized I really did not like marketing at all. And then I transferred over to the operations department, which I fell in love with. So I continued to do that until I graduated. And once I graduated, I somehow convinced them to hire me full time, and worked my way up to be the director of operations for all the home events. So I would set up all of the events for, I believe at the time we had like 17 different Division I sports. So I was responsible for making sure there was enough chairs on the bench, for helping to set up the timing pads for swimming, which they probably don't even have those anymore. It was so long ago. Um, and then after Florida Atlantic, I was like, you know what? I could do this on a professional level. I'm working way too much, getting paid too less, like not enough. So let me send my resume out. So I wound up sending out my resume to every professional sports team in the country, from Major League Baseball to soccer to football to basketball. And I wound up getting two calls back from the Houston Rockets and the Miami Heat. And I wound up at the Houston Rockets. And that's what, started off my career in professional sports and entertainment.
I know you said you had back surgery and that, you wanted to sort of stay involved in sports, but how did you go about, when you had surgery and like transitioning out of your athletic career, sort of finding yourself and your identity outside of
Um,
being an athlete?
yes, it was difficult, but being around the sport and around all the people involved in the sport kind of kept me grounded, and kept me busy, to be honest with you. So that definitely helped, by not veering too far away from sports in general.
Yeah, because I feel like it is difficult for people who may not be entering a career in sports who are sort
Yeah.
of just thrown if they're going into, let's just say, like finance or something like that. Like it's a completely different world and like, like realm of people around you. So I feel like that
Yeah. But
is
hey, if
thought.
you are in finance, athletes need money. Finance runs the world in professional sports and entertainment. So there's so many different jobs you can have and still be, married to sports essentially.
Yeah, no, there's definitely like in many different industries a way to still
Mhm.
be involved if that is what you choose to do.
Yep, definitely.
Can you talk a little bit about, some mentors that you might have had and the impact that had on you, either like in your athletic career or as you were sort of trying to find your footing in the professional field?
Sure. I think in my club swim team, my mentor was my coach. I was with him every day, morning and night, because we had morning practice, afternoon practice, weekend meets. He really guided all of us, in life and in sports, from nutrition to, hey, you don't need to go out to the club, you got a swim meet tomorrow kind of thing. So I feel like in that era, he was, a very big part of being a mentor. And then when I got into my professional career, um, I believe, I don't know, you might have to cut this because I didn't really have many mentors, to be honest with you. Um, I feel okay. So my mentor in my professional career was actually more my brother, and he had nothing to do with sports and entertainment. But the fact that he went out on his own and made a decision, this is what I'm going to do, I think it gave me a lot of courage to be like, send your resume out to every professional sports team and something's going to drop because you can do the work. So I think that had a lot to do with it. And then once, like now, I've actually transitioned into being a mentor for others, which I love to do. And I think it's very important that you have somebody that, even if it's just like you talk once or you talk once a month, I mean, I think it helps no matter what.
Yeah, I think, like, I was talking to someone else too, like, it is important, obviously, to have mentors in your field and to have people to ask, like, those logistical questions too, like, specific to your work, but it's also important to have people who are like your brother, who are just, like,
Yeah.
completely, like, removed from what you're doing, who just know you as a person and know, like, your work ethic and, like, like, what you're capable of and who believe
Yeah.
in you.
And
So
it's
that's
funny you say work ethic because I think that's kind of missing in this day and age. I feel like a lot of people that are coming right out of college are expecting to shoot up to director level or VP level. I could do the work, I got it. Like, you have to put your head down, do the work, learn everything that you could learn from this job before you go on to the next job. Even if you have to leave that job to move up, which is what I had to do a lot. I moved to various cities without knowing anybody because I wanted to elevate myself. But I learned everything I could from each job in order to move on to the next one.
Yeah, and I think, like, that's a great point because, like, feel like especially in Division 1 sports and, like, higher major sports, like, you know, career readiness and, like, getting yourself prepared for, like, your post athletic career is not sort of emphasized, especially, in, like, the Power 5 conferences and, like, stuff
Mhm.
like that, especially if you're not going on to play your sport professionally.
Yeah,
So, like, if, being in a specific field or, like, having a job out of college is something that you want, like, it's something that you sort of have to go and get.
yeah,
No one's really gonna hand it to you, which is or not hand it to you, but, like, tell you what to do,
yeah,
in that sense, and so, I feel like it is really unfortunate that schools don't prepare people as well as they should, but, yeah, like you said, like, it is sort of a shocker, being the best on your team or being the best from your town or at your school or whatever it is, and then, like, having to get an entry level job and not knowing what you're doing and feeling like,
mhm,
you don't really have the skill set to be, like, at this higher level, like, these VP
right,
positions that people are applying for, but because, like, you've always been the best at what you're doing, you just think that you can do it. But
right.
obviously, that's not the case, and it takes a lot of adjustment to get,
Mhm.
feel like you're a freshman again.
Yep, definitely, definitely.
Um, yeah, I think, like, can you talk a little bit about your beginning parts of your career and, like, feeling like you're at the bottom and, how you sort of use that to leverage yourself and, advance yourself in your career?
Sure. So was I ready for this director of operations position in charge of 17 collegiate sports setups? No, I was not. But if you ask the right questions, and you do the work, you do the research, I think you could be ready for most jobs. And for me, I kind of had my dad to fall back on, to be honest with you, because he was the president of my swim team for pretty much my whole club swimming career, as far as I remember. And I would go with him to set up all the meets. So I would go early to help him set up, and then I would get in the pool and swim. So I feel like I had like unofficial experience, my unofficial internship for most of my life to help, helping to set up the meets and everything. So I feel like that was key for me. And the transition from collegiate sports to professional sports was a big jump, because at the time, FAU wasn't as big of a school as it is now. It had just gotten its football team. And so there was a lot of new things that we had to do, anything from like CapEx to keeping track of the budget, and what was once $1 million budget in sports and professional sports and entertainment is now like a $13 million budget. And that was a lot to like keep track of. And then above and beyond sports specific, I also was producing concerts, which I had never done before. Um, but it kind of translated as operationally. but it was a lot more to understand from, and unions to understand, from like stagehands to riggers to ticket takers. Um, and obviously, like I said, the budget was a lot bigger. You're making important decisions that could affect the outcome of a game or a concert. Like if you don't get the stage right, Aventura is not going on the stage.
Yeah.
you know so your decisions were a lot more important, and you had to be calculated in what you were doing and make sure you knew your position. So you had to know your job. If you had a question, it's important to ask. Don't just try and push through. Ask the question, get the correct answer, do your research.
Yeah, I feel like that's super important, like, especially for people who just graduated, who are, like you said, like, beginning it might not have been necessarily a new field for you, but that was definitely a much larger role than you had ever been in charge
Yeah.
of. So, it's definitely important to, lean on the people around you and the people that have more experience than you,
Yeah.
to help you out in those situations.
Hmm.
How I know you said you were able to get an internship while you were at FAU. How, prepared did you feel like throughout your athletic career, like maybe compared to your peers or, compared to other people that you've met, to enter the post grad world?
I think it helped tremendously. So I had worked summers at my mom's job, just like doing filing, but being around um, those in the business world and corporate world, I think it definitely prepared you on how to talk to people, because I can't talk to my friend Jane McCauley the same way I talk to Miss Robin Taylor. There's certain things that you can't say, and you have to realize like not everybody around you is in your same generation. So you can't speak the same language. You have to adjust. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people have trouble with. Everybody takes things differently, takes criticisms differently, takes compliments differently. So you need to know how to adjust per person, which is very difficult. It's difficult for anyone, much less somebody right out of college.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the transition from that to the internship I had at the time, which was it was actually in sponsorship with the Florida Panthers, who play hockey in Florida and just won the Stanley Cup. I feel like that little side job with my mom helped me transition to like the professional industry and an internship. And it was difficult because I was working a full-time job. I was swimming at the time as well. And they were very flexible, and I was going back and forth from Boca Raton to Sunrise, Florida to Miami, where my parents were. So it was difficult. But if you have a goal, you have to do the difficult things to reach your goal. And even though I didn't want to be in sponsorship, that helped me get my foot in, because later on I got a job as an event manager there.
Yeah.
So
I feel like, it's very untraditional while you're a college athlete to be able to have an internship like that. And I feel like, I was able to experience that last summer. When I was up in Buffalo, I interned for the PGA section in Buffalo. So, like in the mornings we would have practice and then I would head over to the golf course and I'd come back and then I'd head back over.
yeah.
So, it was very similar as back and forth. And that was like very, very unusual, especially for a Division 1 basketball player to, to be
Hmm.
pursuing an internship, even though in reality, like people who don't play a college sport, if you're going into your senior year of college, like you've already had usually 2 to 3 summers of internship. So,
Hmm.
if that is a goal of yours, like it is really important to just go out and pursue that because
Yeah.
like my coach wasn't going to tell me to go find an internship. Obviously, like she wasn't going to push me to do that, even though I
Right.
was, in all the right places I needed to be and I was meeting all my obligations. But yeah, no, it is challenging. But if that is something that you want, it definitely prepares you for sure.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
and I think it's also important. Like a lot of people are like, oh, they're not going to let me do both. But if you're transparent and you explain this is what I need to do, and you get your work done, there shouldn't be a problem.
yeah. And like, especially at like a mid-major school, like no one is playing in the WNBA. And like, like a select few people, if they choose to, can play overseas, like if they would like to pursue that. But like the reality is like once your 4 or 5 years are over, like everyone's entering the corporate world or entering their field. Like no one's continuing to play basketball. So it is so important to like put as a coach, I feel, to place an emphasis on this as well as your academics and your sport super early on and not, like, because I know so many people who didn't even start their career search until their career ended, their
Yeah.
college career ended. So I feel like that makes it super difficult.
No, I agree.
What advice would you give for, college athletes who may not have had the opportunity to, gain experience and have an internship while they were in college? Like, how could they utilize their college athletic experience sort of as their quote unquote like work experience?
So I feel like college athletics and sports in general give you a leg up over somebody that doesn't play sports. You have the discipline, you have the camaraderie with your fellow athletes and student athletes. Because you not only have to focus on your academics, but as well as your sport, and the training and your nutrition, and your sleep for that matter. So I think all that lends you to have a leg up for other people, and that should be included on resumes. I think it's very important. So I think that is a leg, like I said, just a leg up amongst other people that are not in sports.
Yeah. How would you, like what advice would you give for people? Maybe they were student athletes, maybe they weren't, who are sort of beginning to do like these sort of networking calls because I know like they can be, a little intimidating at first if you've never done them or you don't know the questions to ask or who to even reach out to.
Yes. So networking for some people is not fun at all, including myself. I despise going to networking events, but it is important to get to know other people, and to get to know other people's journeys, because your journeys are totally different and you can definitely learn something from them. Even if you're not getting a job from them or if they're not helping you move forward, you can learn from everyone. So I think networking is important. Um, and there's so many YouTube videos, there's so many lessons that you could learn online on how to be better at networking. You could take a class just for that. And then you can, I would go over all the questions that you have in your head, icebreaker questions, questions you have about your specific industry, or how did you get a leg up in your industry? And that could also pertain to what you do and how you can get up.
Yeah, for sure. I think like especially as a former athlete, like reaching out to those who are alumni of your school or just like any former athlete like in the field that you're interested in, like as even for me, like when this I'm not obviously in the position to give people, career advice in the professional world, but when high schoolers reach out to me and ask me about recruiting advice for college sports, I'm like so excited to talk to them and help them out. So it's like it's the same thing in the professional world. Like when you're graduating your sport, like athletes want to help athletes and like everyone is super, welcoming and wanting to help out if they're available. So
Definitely, definitely. And I feel a lot of people are scared to reach out because they might get rejected, or you're going to get rejected so many times in your life. The more you reach out, the more you'll get yeses. The more jobs you apply for, the more you'll get offers. So I think that's very important as well.
yeah, for sure. Can you talk about in your specific job right now, are there any business practices, like new business practice, like AI or anything along those lines that are super relevant right now that you think that um those who are either recently graduated or like finishing up their career should get themselves familiar with?
So I think there's currently a lot of online training that they do. There's obviously on-the-job training specific to your position, that's important, but a lot of the training is online. A lot of people don't learn as well that way and learn better hands-on. So I think you have to kind of like find your niche. And if you're not understanding something, you should say something. There's AI is involved in like emergency preparedness now as well. So like if you need to evacuate a building, there's like contact information in AI for like an organization, and they send out texts. Are you okay? Where are you? So there's a lot of things that are incorporated in that as well. Everything is online, obviously from emails, Zooms, that came in hot during COVID. So there's like no phone calls anymore. It's all Zooms. We use Slack a lot. There's a lot of task related websites that are used from, I think it's called Asana to Monday.com. So it's a lot of project oriented work. And that where you could just like put a list of things to do and it gets checked off. So I think that's a lot of the stuff at the moment that I'm dealing with.
And then my last question for you is just if you have any specific pieces of advice for college athletes who may be graduating right now, going into their last year of their sport, or sort of in this period of transition, trying to, find their footing outside of playing
Mhm.
college athletics.
Have fun. Uh, don't, I'm not going to say don't get a job that's not fun for you, but if it's fun and you enjoy it, it's not as grueling. And do the work, put in the hours, but still have fun. Like don't let go of that youth because it'll be gone before you know it, but don't give it up. Just hold on.
Awesome. Thank you so much again for coming on here. I really appreciate it.
Of course.